So this is one of those episodes where it's like, just as I'm preparing to record, it's like I have so much to use as an intro that I'm kind of spoiled for choice. So like there was this whole talk that I was gonna give about how people who usually talk about their six-figure earnings and how they started from nothing might be crappy. Then there's this other story that I had gotten about how some security guard here in Kenya unknowingly solicited a bribe from the president of our country, President Uhuru Kenyatta, to access a facility. And the funny thing is the president actually gave it to him. But I think the one I'm going to stick with is this one where apparently the Media Council of Kenya decided to put one of our radio presenters known as Natalie Githinji on the spot because apparently she was being explicit when she said, "Nikununulie condom ugonge vitu zangu," which for those of y'all that don't understand Swahili means, "I'll buy you a condom so that you can hit my things," directly but slightly loosely translated. And here's the thing, like, I can get how explicit tends to be, depending on different people. But let me just ask. Sorry, wrong question. My actual question is, how is a condom explicit? Like, just fill me in on this. Like, I can get it. People talking about having sex is, not exactly what you'd call the most family-friendly thing. But then again, it's not like she even used the word sex. Because last I had checked, actually using the word sex on Kenyan radio was like sort of prohibited. So it's like you have to find some form of a word that can pass the gray area that is using the term sex. And for the most part, people have been doing that for a very long time. It's something that's been done for years. Hell, even when I was joining campus radio, it was one of those things that I learned very early on. And if anything, that was actually done quite well here. So, the most explicit thing, quote unquote, here is the fact that she used the word condom. And to be quite honest, I have two issues with this. First of all, what, cover-up word are you supposed to use to blanket the term condom, And how exactly would it be used to make the statement still make sense? Because, take for example, you can use something like a rapper. Nikununulie rapper ugonge vitu zangu. Like, it doesn't even make sense when you say that. You can try using the term sock, because I've seen people use that from time to time. And still, even when you try using the word sock in that statement, and actually in most statements to kind of replace the word condom, it still doesn't really feel as fluid. So in a sense, it's like she didn't have that much else to use. Although, secondly, what's so explicit about a condom? I can get how people can think sex is explicit. And, talking about the intricacies of sex isn't something that's very PG. But what exactly is explicit about a condom? Because I feel as though people are still kind of brainwashed by the idea that sex is a bad thing. Or, sex is this really, really, cagey subject that shouldn't be discussed openly. That they're willing to find every single way to make sure that it's not spoken about openly and publicly. Which in all essence is quite unfortunate because in a sense it's like you're robbing kids from actually learning something that, can probably help them in the future. Because when you think about it, if you don't talk about sex and you don't talk about condoms particularly, then we're going to have a society of young people that don't know how to use condoms, that are very anti-condom because they don't necessarily understand the condom. And if you don't understand something, it's either you fear it or you avoid it. And because of that, there'll be fewer of them that'll be open to going and getting a condom from the shop. And, even fewer will know how to use it. Then from here, you can talk about things like population control because people won't be using condoms as such and they'll be relying on pull-out game, of which too many people are quite weak at it. And then, you'll end up with a ton of kids and, the government won't be able to support all of these people. Anyways, long-term thinking aside, I've always wanted to join radio, but when you see things like this, it kind of makes you really rethink it because, honestly, I love digital media because we have freedom of speech and shit. But anyways, speaking of digital media, we do have a podcast to begin and I have taken too much time and I'm sorry for that. So we might as well start in our very typical fashion. Welcome to Breaktime on Westside, your number one breakdown podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who once thought that he would be on radio, but he has a podcast now, so I guess that kind of fills it up. He is a man that once thought that MILF was a combination of milk and beef. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. The show is Tweetstreet, the show where we take a deep dive into Twitter, pull up a couple of tweets, and break them down a little bit. Now, as usual, there's a song to how you can send the tweets to me so that I can break them down on Tweetstreet. It's not really a song, but it kind of sounds like one with the way I always repeat it. And it kind of goes like this. You see that tweet, you like that tweet, you want us to discuss that tweet, you send that tweet. You send it to the DMs of @BagakaTheD, which happens to be my personal Twitter handle, where I will take it and handle it accordingly. If it's one of those screenshots or screen grabs that you see on Facebook and Instagram, then you can send it to the DMs of @Breaktime on Westside, which happens to be the handle on IG, and also how to reach me on my Facebook page @Breaktime on Westside. And yeah, that's probably how you should do it. Now, we should probably move it on because time is of the essence. Now, I do want to get to the main tweets, but there's this very interesting tweet that I saw, and it was a message that was sent, and this guy was asking for advice, and it reads, and I quote, "I have been with my wife for over 6 years now. Yesterday, she shocks me after showing me that she usually thinks about her ex daily, and they've been communicating. She claims she loves me, but she doesn't know what she'll do so that she can forget this ex, because right now she is in depression. What should I do? We have 3 kids and I love her so much." Okay, now I know that there's a good chunk of you that are thinking, you know what, drop this babe, go get a DNA test on those kids. That babe is probably already cheating on you. She shouldn't even be in your life at this point. Like, just pack up and move on, or, kick her out and move on and shit. Like, if that's how you're thinking, then I totally understand where you're coming from. Because hell, even when I was looking at the comments that were put under this tweet, the quoted replies and everything, all of them were saying more or less the same exact thing. And personally speaking, if it was me that was in this guy's position, probably I do something similar. The first thing I do is go and get a DNA test on all 3 of those kids. The second thing that I'll do is probably ask this baby if she still wants to be in the marriage or not. I'd probably be expecting a no, and I definitely just tell her, just pack up your shit and leave, because I'm not ready to leave the house that I probably paid for and shit. But at the end of it, I'd probably just end things with her at that point. And it's mostly because I will have chosen to take zero liability in her ability to cheat at that point. Mostly because whenever I'm with somebody, I give them the freedom to communicate. I tell them, if you want to tell me anything, tell me anything. Like, by all means, if you feel something about the relationship, if you feel you don't like something or you like something about me, tell me. I will communicate the same exact way, because I want us to have open communication, so that if I'm messing up on something, instead of you getting to the level where you cheat, you might as well tell me so we can kind of fix it together as a couple. And that would probably be the reason why I dropped this babe, because if she's been communicating with this guy for a while, then there could be some form of emotional cheating that's going on, which could be as a result of me not fulfilling something with her. But the fact that she didn't say yet she had the option to clears me of any liability. But now that I've said all of that, I will accept one thing. I am neither married nor do I have kids. And because of that, I will choose to take a slightly different stance on this. And my personal piece of advice to this man, if he is or was listening to this podcast, probably would be, firstly, after she's given you this information, you should ask her what it is that you want to do, or at least what it is that she wants to do at this point. Because she could be telling you this as a way of saying that, I think we should end things, or, I think I might want an open relationship, or I want a polyandrous relationship where I can be with this guy. Or it could just be her way of pointing out an issue and pretty much crying out for help in terms of the relationship being in a possible state of crumbling. Because in a sense, she came and she told this to you. She could have kept quiet about it, and if she was smashing this dude, she probably would have continued doing it and you would have never known about it. Trust me, a ton of these babes do that, and their husbands, their boyfriends, their partners do not know anything about it. And the fact that she's told you that means that she could be trying to communicate in one way or another, especially since babes clearly do not know how to communicate directly a lot of the times, and this could be your chance to actually salvage your relationship. while you're busy deciding on that, I will still tell you to go and do a DNA test on those kids, just to make sure you're not paying somebody else's child's school fees. And while you're doing all of that, I will advise that you actually go and see a marriage counselor together, like on the real though. Because I feel as though, for the most part, people have been talking about, oh, drop this babe, dump this babe, go divorce her, blah, 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 she's cheating on you. And yet, in reality, this is considered a mistake like any other. And I think, to some degree, that even people who make mistakes such as cheating do deserve second chances in some cases. So, probably, this could be a chance to actually salvage and work on your marriage. Probably was going to the rocks. Probably she was feeling unsatisfied. And this is your way of finding it out. But this whole thing that people have been bringing up, oh, divorce her, drop this babe, blah, blah, blah. Like, I feel as though people have normalized a lack of tolerance and a lack of forgiveness, and they're so ready to have you end your relationship, yet they don't know what you've been through, they don't know what you might be feeling at the time, and more so, they aren't really looking at the kind of long-term damage that it can do. Because there's a lot of relationships, there's a lot of families that would have been thriving right now if the couple wouldn't have chosen to split, if the parents didn't choose to end things, if they chose to stick together and, try and make it work. But unfortunately, they decided to take the advice of people that aren't exactly in their situation, that are not qualified to give marriage or dating advice, kind of like me. And, they're just getting advice in the name of, I wouldn't take that, just drop them, and they choose to do that, which I think is very wrong. Either way, I do wish the person that sent this all the best, and, I hope the marriage is still there and you guys are working on, going strong. And now we have to move it on. So on to the first tweet. The biggest L you can ever take as a man after getting the bag is taking the woman who could not look your way when you were broke places and spending all your bag on her. Now, I honestly feel like I disagree with this statement, because y'all aren't, recognizing that sometimes there can be love there, and in a sense, that's just wrong, man. And I totally find that everything that I've just said in that past statement, as well as the person that chooses to do such a thing, to be utterly stupid in a sense. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat that, because when you think about the idea that, you took an L back in the day, like you were probably on the come up and this person turned you down. And, you took that L and you went and you put the work in and you've turned it into a win, and then you're still going back to the same person. Like, what kind of validation problem do you seem to have as a man? Because here's the thing. Like, when you actually get the bag, you have the opportunity to get not just that babe, but just about every other babe. And if anything, you have more options, so you can definitely find better if you actually look hard enough. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, there's nothing better, blah, blah, blah. And truth of the matter is that could be true, but you wouldn't know unless you go and you try what's good and what's bad out there. Now, unfortunately, somebody like this isn't really looking for what's good or what's bad out there. And they tend to miss out, because this is a high value man. This is a man that can probably pick up just about any babe that he wants. And I'm assuming that, getting the bag is, making good amounts of money. They become a higher level person in society and shit. So if anything, I feel like you can exercise your options as a guy. So instead of fixating yourself with this one babe who probably may or may not care about you if you've actually made the bank, you might as well just go and try out all the other babes that are there. There's billions of them as we speak. And, that being said, I can get that, sometimes you can feel like you really, really have the feels for this person. And maybe once you've made the bank, you'll probably be worthy of her. But honestly speaking, if you are making the bank thinking of trying to impress her, then you're making the bank for all the wrong reasons. But at the same time, if you do actually manage to make the bank, then to kind of ensure that you have the right babe and you have the babe that you want to be with, you can just go ahead and do what Future said, which is go bang all these other babes. And if you go back to this same exact babe, as you guys are busy trying to have a thing and everything, then she's probably the one for you. And for that reason alone, then I can probably permit such a thing to happen. But unless you know that she's the one for you, and unless you know that you actually love her, and you've tested out options, I feel like this is just some fucked up level of validation that's like an upper class level of simping. And worse still, if you end up getting the babe, there's a pretty good chance that you'll probably end up devaluing her, because at some point you realize that she probably wasn't even all that. But anyways, who am I to know? I'm not the guy that's trying to do that. So we should probably move it on. So on to our next tweet. Male moans are such a turn on. I be in my head like, finish him. Okay, first of all, I'm just hoping that I nailed that Mortal Kombat impression real quick, because I would hate to get the wrath of gamers because I actually butchered it. But that being said, now on to the tweet itself. Okay, so male moans, and a lot of guys don't get to moan as much as they probably should, or as much as they probably would want to. And to be honest, I think it's for a variety of reasons. Yes, there's the main one where it's like, oh, where usually guys don't moan, blah blah blah. But at least from the many babes that have told me this, I think it's safe to say for all the fellas out there, moaning is actually a good thing for you as a guy. Like, if you're doing it well and she moans, then you know that you're actually doing a good job. And if you flip the tables and she's doing it to you and you're moaning, then she knows very well that she's doing a pretty good job and shit, and you're getting pleasured. But even with that being said, I will still say that there's other reasons why guys don't moan. First of all, we usually have a lot of work to do. Like, babes might not get this, but we actually have a lot of work to do, because you're busy doing all the pump action, and you're hitting it. Probably she wants you to change styles and you're doing it. There's a pretty good chance you're doing a ton of the work there. And while you're busy thinking about your pleasure, you're busy trying to make sure that you're giving it to her good enough so that she nuts and she feels good and everything, so that she doesn't go and talk shit about you to her friends. So in a sense, you're kind of focusing on trying to give a good job. So it's not like you're able to unhook your mind from it and just be in the feels. Then also, I think to some degree, I don't know if I can call it toxic masculinity or just masculinity in general, guys don't want to moan because hitting the high note is a very feminine thing to do. Like, just saying. Like, yes, it's a vulnerability thing, but it's considered to be a more feminine thing. Because imagine you're just walking around this block of apartments, and as you're walking past somebody's flat, you're hearing a guy just hitting the high note, and this guy is probably being smashed, but at that point you're busy wondering if he's the one banging or if he's the one that's being banged. And the issue is, much as guys might want to do that, they don't want to moan to that high note, so they're left to go for the more quote-unquote manly thing to do, which is to, I don't know, growl and grunt and shit. And in a sense, I do kind of feel for guys because of that, because it's like we have very limited options, because one, we don't want to sound like a wuss, and two, we have too much to do. But that being said, we do actually like it when we're having so much pleasure that we can actually moan. But unfortunately, there's a ton of guys that rarely ever get there. But that being said, we should probably move it on to our final tweet of this episode. In my defense, someone's son is probably bored in his house and all he needs is some good company, food, and somebody to talk to, and that has a cost which he has to pay for. Okay, so this was in reply to a set of tweets that had been put out when this same lady who was saying this had come out to ask, if a lady asks you out on a date as a guy and you accept, who takes care of the bill? And people were coming out and they were like, it's common sense, it's you that pays for the bill as a woman, because you're the one that called the guy out. And she comes out and she's like, no, you probably shouldn't. And while I was so ready to get off on this, I kind of realized that she is a bit of like, a trigger alert, because I was looking at a bunch of her tweets and it seemed like she was actually trying to trigger people on this particular day. But that being said, I feel as though if you're still having this discussion about who should pay for the date in this day and age, I feel as though you probably shouldn't be going on dates in the first place. Like, I'm not saying this because I pushed for, no longer going for dates or I'm making it seem like, people should just have money. I feel as though people have had this discussion and it's been a back and forth, and honestly, it's not really going anywhere. Because if anything, it's what's actually been, in some degree, if I'm not wrong, the origin of the whole tables discussion. Because it all started with a guy going up for a date with a babe, or guys going up for dates with babes, and then when the bill comes, this guy asking for it to be split or asking her to pay half. And all of a sudden babes are like, oh, I can't be splitting half on a date with no man. Oh, that's a broke ass nigga, blah blah blah. And all of a sudden guys are like, alright, cool, but why should we be paying for it, yet you also make money and shit? And that kind of escalated to things like bills, because there were some guys who are like, oh, you know what, she should probably pay half. There were others that were like, let her pay for the small things. And then there were the guys that were like, you know what, she shouldn't pay for anything. But as that discussion was coming in and the ladies were like, oh no, I can't be paying no damn bills, that's what my man is for, blah blah blah. Now guys also came in and started asking, all right, fine, I can pay all the bills, but what do you bring to the table? Like, what's your offering to this entire thing? If we're married, if we're dating, if we have a family, if I'm the one that's taking care of all the bills, what else are you providing? And this entire argument about who should pay for what, and whether women should be paying for anything, or they should be paying for everything, or they should pay half or a quarter or even a small bit, I don't care about the fraction. I feel as though this argument has become very moot. I feel like it's just this circular thing that people are just going round and round and round. And honestly, I feel like it's entirely up to you. It's up to your belief. If you feel like a man has to pay for the date, then go get yourself a man that'll pay for the date and pay for all the bills and shit. But personally, I feel like if you're making money as an adult, I think you should be able to hold your own. If you are thinking about going on a date and you're worried about whether somebody should pay the bill or whether you should pay the bill, then it's fine, it's cool. You don't necessarily need to do that. You can just switch to the Netflix and chill. If you're gonna make those financial discussions where it's like, oh, who should be paying for what when we have a family and shit, you can do that a little later on. But from what I've seen, a ton of relationships will have people actually chipping in from both ends. And if you're still stingy enough that you're not willing to chip in because you feel like one side is supposed to pay or another side is supposed to pay, then by all means don't bother dating at all. Because at the end of the day, all of this shit about going out on dates back in the day was used as a tester for, somebody's ability to, be a good mate, be a good partner and shit. Nowadays, dates are just used as the first stage to get into a relationship or somebody's idea of getting free food. And honestly, you can skip the dating parts and just go to the Netflix and chill. And if you want to know all that people used to want to know back in the day when they were going out on dates, you can simply have a situationship as you get to know this person, as you decide on getting into a relationship. And that should give you most of the answers that you want. Anything else you can probably find out from her friends and your friend's observation of her. Because honestly, this whole who pays for a date talk is becoming a little tiring right now. But then again, I could be wrong about the entire thing, so I want to know your thoughts on this. On the DMs, it is at BagakaTheD, which happens to be my personal Twitter handle. On Facebook and Instagram, you can slide into the DMs there as well. The DMs are at Breaktime on Westside. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and if you are listening through Castbox, feel free to drop your thoughts and comments below, and I will attend to them accordingly, and I will catch you guys on the next break.